morning student. We were dealing with the puerperial complications. So today we'll be dealing regarding the puerperial complication itself. I have already said you there are various complications during the time of puerperium. So we have seen about the puerperial sepsis in the last class. Today we'll be dealing with one more complication that is called as a puerperial venous thrombosis. Today we'll see about the puerperial venous thrombosis. So what do you understand by the word puerperial venous thrombosis? It is the thrombosis of the leg veins and pelvic vein which is one of the common and the important complication which you see in puerperium. It is said that it is seen most among the Americans when compared to the Asians and the Africans according to the incidence. Next we will see the types. The types of puerperial venous thrombosis. So there are two types in puerperial venous thrombosis. One is phlebothrombosis and the second one is thrombophlebitis. In phlebothrombosis there are two types, that is a superficial and deep. So first we will understand by the word what is phlebothrombosis. In phlebothrombosis, the initial event which occur is intravascular thrombosis. So it is the formation of the intravascular thrombosis in phlebothrombosis. And the second one is thrombophlebitis. So what do you understand by the word thrombophlebitis? The thrombophlebitis is where the initial event is inflammation of the venous wall to which the thrombus is attached. So that is the difference which you see between the thrombophlebitis and phlebothrombosis. So I have said you in phlebothrombosis there is the formation of the thrombus, whereas in thrombophlebitis it is the inflammation of the venous wall which is starting initially. So in thrombophlebitis the initial event is occurring in the inflammation of the venous wall, whereas in phlebothrombosis you can see there is a formation of the thrombus. The initial stage is the formation of thrombus. So in thrombophlebitis there are two types, that is non-suppurative and suppurative. Okay, next we'll see about the etiology. So what are the etiology of puerperial venous thrombosis? So there are various causes to formation of this thrombosis. So we'll see one by one what are these things. The first one is the stasis of the blood in the pelvic and the leg vein. So how this stasis of the blood in the pelvic and leg vein happens? It happens mainly because if the lady is lying down for a long time in the bed, especially in time of pregnancy, there are chances that she may be lying down in a bed for a long time, which will lead to a risk of the formation of thrombosis. Or else even after the operation or even after the delivery, if she is not moving or if she is not ambulating, then there is a chance of having a thrombosis. That's the reason we always say ambulate the patient even after the cesarean section or even after the normal delivery. She has to ambulate and have certain postnatal exercise to prevent the formation of thrombus. The second one is the alteration in the blood constituents. So what are the alteration in the blood constituents you can see is there is a chance of more formation of clot or coagulation. This is mainly due to the increased fibrinogen and the increased number of young platelets. So in that case there are chances that there is a formation of thrombus. And the third one is infection. The infection may be in the pelvis because of the cellulitis. There is a chance of infection, and this infection will lead to a formation of the thrombus or the inflammation of the venous wall. And the fourth one is trauma to the venous wall. Because of certain trauma which might have happened at the time of delivery or which might have happened because we keep the patient for a long time in a lithotomy position with the stirrups. So there are chances because of this reason also the lady may get a thrombus formation. That's the reason in some hospitals they are not using this stirrups to hold the patient in a lithotomy position, as well as even though they use the stirrups to hold her legs, it will be in a modernized pattern which is soft and which doesn't create a pain to the patient's leg. And there are various other high risk factors which may be lead to the formation of thrombus. Those are, you can see that they may be advancing age and parity, there may be a cesarean section, obesity, anemia, heart disease, and use of estrogen in suppression of lactation. So these are the certain risk factors which may be leading to the formation of thrombus. So I already said you there are two types in phlebothrombosis. So what are those two types in the phlebothrombosis? One is the superficial vein thrombosis and the second one is a deep vein thrombosis. First we'll see about the superficial vein thrombosis. So how does this superficial vein thrombosis occurs? It occurs in a pre-existing, already there is a varicose vein which is already existing. So it happens in case of pre-existing varicose vein in the legs. And the second thing, it can occur on rare occasion. What happens is it may spread upwards to involve the long saphenous vein and hence to the femoral vein. So it may affect the saphenous vein and also it may affect the femoral vein. And what happens later is detachment of the thrombus, which leads to the pulmonary embolism, which is a very dangerous. So these are the things which can happen in superficial vein thrombosis. And the clinically you can see that in superficial vein thrombosis there may be a rise in temperature, there may be tenderness, that is there will be a pain when you touch the leg because of this thrombosis formation, and you can also see a discoloration or the redness in the area. But in superficial vein thrombosis, it starts immediately like 1 or 2 days after the delivery, and it may extend up till 1 week, and thereof later on it goes off. So these things you can clinically observe in superficial vein thrombosis. And the second one is the deep vein thrombosis. In deep vein thrombosis, an independent origin in the calf muscle and it extends upwards. Deep vein may be involved secondarily. So it originates from the calf muscle itself. Sometimes what happens, this deep vein thrombosis is asymptomatic. So what are the clinical features or what you can see observe in the patient is similarly like a superficial vein thrombosis. Here also you can see that the patient will be having a temperature, that is rise in temperature. The patient will be having an increased pulse rate, and there will be a pain in the calf muscle as well as there will be a pain in the sole. And also you can see there is a positive Homan sign. I'm sure that all of you have seen and all of you have shown how to find out or how you can see the Homan sign positive or not. You have already done and you have already shown me regarding this Homan sign. So in such cases, you will see there is a Homan sign positive. So that's the reason we always include to check the Homan sign positive or not in case of postnatal period. So it is your duty as a nurse to go and check. Even the doctors will be checking for the Homan sign to see whether there is a pain in the calf muscles. So this is about the deep vein thrombosis which you have to see. So the next one is the investigation. What are the investigation you can do in order to see whether the patient is having a thrombus formation or you can see for the venous thrombosis. So the investigation include, even in the clinically if you are going to see, you can see that there is a changes in the circumference. That is, if you check the circumference of the thigh as well as a calf, you can make that if it is more than 2 centimeters, you can rule out there is a formation of the thrombus when there is a swelling also of the leg, and also there will be a discoloration of the leg. And main investigations which you are doing is a Doppler ultrasound. So if the patient is complaining of calf muscle pain when you are checking for Homan sign, and if it is positive, then the next step which you have to go is for a Doppler ultrasound. In Doppler ultrasound, you can rule out whether there is a formation of thrombosis. In Doppler ultrasound, they are going to rule out the velocity of the blood, and also you can go for a phlebography. In phlebography also you can see there is any obstruction in the lumen where there is a flow of blood. So these are the two types of investigation which they are doing to rule out the formation of thrombosis. The next one is the prevention. So prevention is better than the treatment. For all the saying goes like this. So we'll see that better it is to prevent the formation of the thrombosis. So how you can prevent the formation of thrombosis? The first one is a predisposing factor should be prevented and treated effectively. So what are these predisposing factors? So it depends on the cause. Like the patient may be having certain infection, the patient may be having anemia, the patient may be having certain blood disorders, the patient may be having trauma. So all these things, what are the predisposing factor, has to be ruled out and it has to be treated timely. That's the reason we ask the patient to come for an antenatal checkup, so that she can have a regular checkup, and based on her checkup, if she is showing certain symptoms, then it has to be treated then and there itself, in order to prevent the further complications. So all the predisposing factors should be prevented and it should be treated effectively at time. And the second thing is the elastic compression stockings. So it is better to make use of the elastic stockings, there are various types of stockings, various brand of stockings available. So it is better to use this elastic stockings. Even when we are sending the patient for cesarean section, before sending the patient to cesarean section, in some hospital they have a policy that the patient has to be shifted to the OT along with the stockings. So the nurse who is working in the labor room, as well as she has to hand over to the OT where they are holding the patient in the holding area. The nurse has to check whether the patient is has brought the stockings. So it has to be, it is a policy in most of the hospital. The patient has to be shifted for cesarean section accompanied with the stockings. And the next one is leg exercise and early ambulation. So I already said you, all the patients who have undergone whatever the normal vaginal delivery or cesarean section, they should have a leg exercise and they have to be ambulated as early as possible. So for the patient who has undergone a cesarean section, like under spinal anesthesia or general anesthesia, you have to ambulate them after 12 hours. Within that time they have to be ambulated. So make sure that when you ambulate the patient, be careful that first you have to make the patient sit down slightly. Either if you able to raise her cot, it is better, make her sit down for 5 minutes, take a deep breath exercise for 10 deep breaths, and then she has to sit to the side of the cot, dangle her feet for 5 minutes, and then when she feels comfortable, then she can ambulate herself first to the washroom. That is in case of cesarean section. Whereas in normal vaginal delivery also the same thing, but make sure that you check her vaginal bleeding, the amount of bleeding, and everything is normal. Then it make sure that you have to ambulate the patient in order to prevent such complication. And in case of high risk patient, for certain high risk cases, those who are prone to get the thrombosis, usually doctor for not for normal vaginal delivery but for the cesarean section, they will order either the dextran, they will order dextran infusion or anticoagulant therapy. Anticoagulant therapy, for most of the patients they will order heparin, that is after cesarean section. The heparin should not be given immediately after the surgery. You have to wait for 6 hours, and after 6 hours the heparin injection has to be started. That is the heparin 5000 international units, like on OD doses you can give for 6 days. Later on you can go for a oral therapy of tablet warfarin according to the doctor's advice. So these are the measures which you have to take in order to prevent the formation of thrombosis or puerperal venous thrombosis. Finally, we'll see the management of phlebothrombosis. The phlebothrombosis, I already said you, there are two types, that is superficial vein thrombosis and deep vein thrombosis. Even after the prevention, the patient has landed up with such a condition, then you have to go for a management. So the management is by bed rest. The bed rest with the foot and raised to a heart level. And anyway, the patient will be having a pain. So when there is a pain on the affected area, it will be relieved with the analgesics. So analgesics has to be given. The patient will also be having a disturbed sleep because of the pain or because of the psychological condition. She may not be able to have a proper sleep. So when the patient is having a disturbed sleep, then you have to administer her tablet phenobarbital 30 to 60 mg or diazepam 5 mg bedtime as per the doctor's advice. And the next one is appropriate antibiotics. Based on the condition of the patient, according to the doctor's advice, the proper antibiotic has to be administered at a regular interval with the proper dosage. The next one is anticoagulants. I have already discussed you about the anticoagulants. The anticoagulants are heparin, and later on it will be switched on to tablet form, that is warfarin. And when the pain subsides, you should allow the patient to have a gentle movement of her leg on the bed itself. And finally, you can see that she has to make use of a high quality elastic stockings fitted to the affected leg before the mobilization. Before she moves off or before she get out of the bed, it is better she has to wear her stockings and then she can move. So this is the management for a phlebothrombosis. Finally, we have come to the end of this topic. So today we have seen about puerperal venous thrombosis. In puerperal venous thrombosis, I have said that there are two types, that is phlebothrombosis and thrombophlebitis. Today we have seen about phlebothrombosis. In phlebothrombosis, we have seen about the etiology which leads to the formation of phlebothrombosis, and we have seen the types of phlebothrombosis, and next we have seen the in types we have seen certain clinical features and how you can identify the formation of this thrombosis formation, mainly the Homan sign. The Homan sign is very important in case of postnatal assessment or postpartum assessment. Next we have seen the investigation, and later on we have seen how you can prevent this, and finally we have seen the management of phlebothrombosis. Hope you have understood this. If you have any doubt, you are free to ask me. Thank you.